didn't add respawning to the game until about a month before release. It's a classic example of something that every playtest I ever did. So basically, if you died in the game, lighting. It's a weird one. The lighting. I didn't have lighting at one stage. There wasn't light. Then it was sounding a bit biblical. But as it went on, I kind of added that in. Initially, I was doing them by hand for every level, and basically this procedural system kind of came out of laziness. I didn't want to do that anymore. And weirdly, as a side effect of that, it was cool, and the shadows moved and could be kind of related to placement of objects, placement of characters. And it was good. It's actually faked because the game was made in free Unity. I didn't have any shadows within the game kind of proper. So what I did was they're kind of stretched rectangles. So I place a corner of the rectangle at each corner which the shadow's projecting from, and then kind of stretch them off into the distance. Any coder listening to this just lost all respect for me because that's the most wasteful way you could possibly do this. But it kind of worked, and we just went with it. And it's one of the things that people seem to like. So, yeah. Fortunately, it's rectangles, so I can be wasteful. Okay, so this is the moving platform corridor. This was an attempt to bring in something that's going to become very important in a very short amount of time, the moving platforms. It's really hard to introduce moving platforms because moving platforms move, and that makes them challenging and makes them kind of a complex interaction. So what the corridor here allows me to do is introduce you to the idea that sometimes the ground moves, but in a way that doesn't actually kind of impact you too much and won't cause you, hopefully, to get too stressed out. People seem to like it. It's kind of a bouncy castle level. People tend to have fun as they move through it, which is quite cool. And yeah, it looks interesting, and hopefully it just kind of introduces the concept. This is the most important level in the game. This is the point where I basically get to the point. And arguably I should have done it a little bit sooner. However, this is where it is, and that's fine. So this is the point where the player has to learn how to switch characters, which is kind of the basis of the entire thing, is this switching between the characters. This is also actually one of the first levels. This is almost identical to the version that was in the original Flash game. You have two characters, both on the wrong side with their alternating targets. It's hopefully a space that makes a lot of sense. Kind of logically you can understand what's going on with it. There's no lighting that's complex in it. It's quite flat. It's intentionally, hopefully, everything about this level is designed to get out of your way so you can learn essentially, a few things. One, how to switch characters, obviously. Two, how to this was a weird little accident, this level, actually. There's on Thomas on the right there, as you move up, you're moving through trigger boxes. If you don't make games, trigger boxes are basically spaces you jump into or move into, and they cause something in the game to happen. So as you move up as Thomas, you're hitting these trigger boxes which cause the walls to come in. But as a really weird coincidence, I got one of the timings wrong, so that as you moved up, there's a certain point where it looks like you can jump somewhere, you jump to it, and the wall flies out and hits you in the face. It's kind of a funny moment. And I did it, and I thought it was funny, and it felt kind of organic. And I took it to, when I started showing the game to people, it happened to everyone. It's a weird thing that it seems to catch everyone out. Even though there's nothing forcing you into it, 90% of the time people get hit in the face. And most of the time they laugh, so I left it in, and I'm really happy with it, actually. It's one of those nice little coincidences that worked out really well. Steps. Everyone loved the steps. They didn't, actually, and it's probably my biggest design regret in the game is steps. Basically are kind of obstacles that you have to jump over by kind of piling up a few characters in order to get through. That's fine. The problem with steps is that you have to do that repeatedly, that you have to essentially solve the same puzzle over and over again in a sequence, and there's just 2 or 3 too many times I do that in the whole game, and it's frustrating to players. Yeah, it sucks. I went through and I removed quite a few of them, so if you're annoyed, you would have been more annoyed if I'd left it how it was. So yeah, it's a shame. I think there's some which are more acceptable than others, but yeah, if that's the worst bit of design in the game, I'm pretty happy though. So yeah, lesson learned. This level's a great example of how useful playtesting is. This map was always very similar to this, but there was one major kind of design difference, was that the stepping stones at the bottom of the screen had had no wall below them, so they were floating over water, which meant that you could fail about 8 or 9 times here, causing you to get very frustrated and angry. And it wasn't a soft fail where your character fell through and you got back up and carried on. It was a cruel, harsh fail that reset the level. And my playtesters hated it. So this is a great example of the kind of thing that to me was invisible, because I understood how the characters moved and I was, making them and playing them all the time. To me, it was a really easy sequence of stepping stones that you can get through first time every time. But once I put it in front of playtesters, I got emails from people saying it was taking them like 45 minutes to get through this level because of that problem. So just sticking a wall underneath, I kept the water because it looked nice, but the sticking a wall underneath really kind of helped and just smoothed people through. People are still working out the game at this stage, and I don't want to kick them too much in the face. I've already hit them in the face with a wall. I should have mentioned Danny a little bit sooner. He just does so much. It's a long story that I've told lots of places, but basically I wrote the story for him. I was trying to find a voice that would suit the game, and I was a big fan of his writing and his kind of audiobooks and radio stuff and all the things he does. And I wrote the part kind of with his voice in mind. And then I tried to find people who could do it, and no one could do it. And then I got drunk and emailed him. And he said yes, which was a bit of a shock. So I'm really chuffed. He did an awesome job. He's been really cool with the game. He's talked about it. He's been lovely, and he's just a really nice chap. He's also really fast. I'm recording this after recording some other stuff with Danny, and he's amazingly quick at what he does. I'm doing a much worse job, and the people in the booth are getting bored, I imagine, at this point. John's my favourite character. Well, I'm going to say that a few times because I've got quite a few favourite characters, but John I really in particular like. He's insecure in a weird way. I'm not entirely sure why he is, but he is. And that leads him to kind of be dishonest and narcissistic, which I think a large number of creative people will associate with. I know I do. And he's so he's a really interesting character. I like the way he grows. I like that his journey as he goes on, and I like the way that his power of kind of basically being the highest jumper is usurped later on by Sarah, and what that does to his view on his situation. So he's a very cool character. This is another level, actually, from the original Flash game, which obviously I tweaked and kind of brought across. I really liked the idea of confined spaces as applied to this game, because with large spaces, having multiple characters with different abilities kind of hopefully feels kind of empowering, feels like you can do anything and get anywhere. Putting them into a confined space kind of becomes an interesting kind of jumble. They get in each other's way, they trip over each other. There's a nice little bit of narration here that kind of highlights that stuff. But it was just something really cool to play with. The other thing is, and I do this all over the place in this game, is I really love adding a character who has a specific ability and then not letting you use it for a little while. But specifically because I just think it builds anticipation. You know John can jump really high. You've seen that, and to then put him in a space where you can't play with that button is just kind of hopefully kind of intriguing and frustrating, and you want to pull through, and you're kind of with John in this level. John is angered by his situation, he just wants to be free. So hopefully kind of the player aligns at that point with John. This level exists solely to allow the player to feel their way into John. This is a chance for you to basically make him jump properly for the first time, and hopefully because of the constraints in the last level, that feels awesome. And I actually use the word awesome in the narration just to push you in case that's not how you're feeling. You should, it's a very good game. And then, yeah, so you've now got access to this awesome jump, and you can do what you feel.
John decided to press the switch to let the little dots catch up with him. John cared for his new allies. You could tell from the sympathetic expression he'd practiced in the mirror all these years.
I think this is the this is getting very self-deprecating, but I think this is the weakest level in the game. I came very, very close to cutting it. This is where the staircase repetition kind of becomes, well, boring. Um, I did do a lot. I shifted things around, kind of varied the step sizes and gaps, and to add variety. But it's a lot better than it was. But it was not. It's the one that when I'm watching Let's Plays, and I'll talk a bit more about Let's Plays in a bit. But the way it's kind of the one that I fast forward through on the Let's Plays because I find it very, very slow. I don't know, that might just be over familiarity, but I don't like this level. Have fun with it though, and I'll see you on the next one.
John was happy to keep helping. He felt it was important to his image that he was seen to help the little guys. He didn't mind them so much either. The red one, Thomas, had a charming way of applauding every time John jumped.